Several times we have faced the question that, how is this practical? People are not going to use it this way. But that's not the way. If you look at more proficient speakers, more, good speakers of English, you see that they also use a lot of figurative language as they speak, right? They use it so that they sound impressive, they sound attractive, and uh, also use it as a marker of their proficiency in English. So that is the relevance of the functional use of figurative language, so to speak. But what I'm also going to tell you is that it doesn't mean you use poetic language. Okay, of course, when you're conversing with people, you don't have to be poetic, but it's okay to be poetic also. If you're using it, in the right amounts, then it is impressive. Of course, if you overdo, it's going to be problematic because figurative language has the problem of creating confusions. So use it only in the required amounts. Okay. A little bit on that. I'll share the screen. See, I'm going to use the PPT that is used in the lecture for figures of speech because I don't want to use complicated things at this point. I want to introduce and talk to you about figures of speech using the lecture slides that we have for the course, right? So I'm going to share that with you, and we're just going to run through the slides, right? Not going to spend a lot of time discussing each of them. So if you have any doubts with respect to any of the figures that we are going to discuss, you may please ask, okay? If not, I'm just going to assume that you've understood, but we'll spend a little bit of time running, through the slides briefly. So where is the lecture slide? Yeah, okay. Please let me know once you're able to see the screen, right? When it's visible, please let me know.
It's visible,
It's
ma'am.
visual,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. It's
Visible?
visible.
Okay, thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is our slide. Oops, sorry. So figure of speech, right? Like I said, basically we're talking about literary devices, right? Although we call them literary devices, it doesn't mean that we use them only in literature, right? They're called literary devices because they're usually elements that add style to your language, right? It gives a certain kind of style to the way you speak, different kind of, adds a kind of flavor to it. So since these usages are more prominently seen in literary writings or creative writings, we call them literary devices, right? Not because it is solely or like entirely used in literature. So literary and literature are two different things. Don't get confused with that. So figures of speech, very simple understanding, or to put it plainly across, these are basically usages in languages, and this is not just about English. Any language that you have known or you speak or use now, they have literary devices, they have figures of speech. Now what's the purpose of the figure of speech? It's basically used in speech or writing when you have to convey ideas or when you have to communicate um, you know things without
Ma'am, I just
being
posted
too
my
literal.
question in chat box, ma'am. Can you please answer that question, ma'am?
No, I will answer. Let me finish talking first, and whatever questions you have, we'll take it up. Okay. If it is not immediately related to this, I think we can wait.
Yes, ma'am, it is immediate. I have posted it in chat box, ma'am.
Huh. Okay. I'll get back to you a little later. Okay. Um, so with figures of speech, then the major thing, so the only reason, the only function that they have to perform in the language that we use is when you have to use them to talk about things in an indirect way, right? When you have to say something directly, of course, you can use your normal methods of speaking or writing. But say you want to talk about a particular topic which is considered taboo, right? Do you understand what is taboo? Something that is considered not, nice or pleasant to be talked about. Say, for example, death, or some other kind of unpleasant events. Okay. Or say someone has gained weight or someone has lost weight, right? So people have a method of putting this across to others without sounding unpleasant or without sounding too rude or impolite, right? So you have to use indirect methods, okay, indirect language to use that. So figures of speech most of the times helps you to overcome that barrier, right? When you're unable to communicate something directly, you can use a figurative language in order to put your point across, right? It can save you the day, from being rude or polite or all that, right? Impolite, sorry. So this is the primary function of figures of speech in any language, right? So for people who are looking for what is the use of learning this is basically the use. When you need to put things across more indirectly, when you have to communicate something, but you are not confident or you don't feel it right to say it directly to someone, you use figurative language, right? So this is the need and the function of figures of speech, okay? Then other functions could include, giving a rhetorical effect or what you also call as a heightened effect, right? If you listen to political speeches or, generally any kind of leadership speeches, right? You will see a lot of use of figurative language. It is also so that, they can hold the attention of the people and they can also sound more serious and more invested in what they're talking about, right? It's all to create that impression that, you're talking about something that is critical, something that is serious, or something that requires people's attention, right? So to produce that heightened effect, or what you also call as a rhetorical effect, people tend to use figures of speech, okay? And of course, it helps you use the language creatively. For some of us who are bored with using the same sentence or reading it every now and then, of course, creative use of language is one aspect of figures of speech, okay? Now, I'm just going to
And
run
ma'am,
through.
ma'am, ma'am,
Yes, go ahead.
I feel a little stuck with the rhetoric word. Can you elaborate on it a bit?
Rhetorical would be, like I said, to produce some kind of a heightened effect. It's usually used to draw people's attention to something. Like rhetorics in speech would
Uh,
be, asking questions like uh, you know maybe posing questions or saying sentences which may not have actual literal meaning, but they can push people to a direction in which they can think, like, thought provoking. For example, say, if I am to take an example from here, an example of paradox, right? So where you say all men are equal, or all animals are equal, but this is from George Orwell's Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than the others, right? So this is an example of a paradox in figures of speech. Now, this produces a rhetorical effect when made in a speech. What is a rhetorical effect? It provokes people to think. It's thought provoking, right? People take a pause at sentences like this, at this kind of constructions, and think, okay, what does, they are forced to think about what actually this person has said, okay? They could have, whoever was writing this sentence could have simply said that, see, not everyone in the world is equal, okay? Equality is just a very abstract concept. In practical life, we probably are unable to achieve equality. But instead of, giving a statement like this, the person has turned to figures of speech, right? The person has used a paradox, a statement like this: all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Obviously, the person is not talking about animals, right? The reference here is to humans, okay? But if he would have said humans, the kind of attention and the understanding that the people who are reading or listening to that would have been quite less, okay? But because it was used in such a way, more number of people, or more than what you expect, would have their attention towards it, and it's more thought provoking than writing a simple sentence, okay? That's what producing rhetorical effect means, that, okay?
okay, ma'am. So can I take it as adding weight to what you say?
Adding weight, or you can simply say to provide some kind of a heightened effect, right? It's all about producing effect. You talk about light and sound show. Now, why do you do that? So that there's some effect, there's some feeling of a celebration, right? Similarly, in language, when you have to emphasize upon something, when you want to draw attention towards something, you use rhetorics, okay?
Okay, ma'am. Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
So what is usually been talked about probably may not have an answer, probably may not have a solution. And that is not the goal. The goal is just that you draw people's attention to that so that, people think about it. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So now we're just going to run through the slides. We're not going to sit and work on each of the thing. I'm just doing this so that I understand whether you have clearly grasped the figures of speech discussed in the lecture. Okay. So Simini,
just
do you have any
please-
questions on this?
Yes, ma'am. I have posted the question in chat box.
No. For simile, do you have any question? Anyone? Is there anything that you have understood? Sorry, not understood for this one? This is fairly simple, right? You are basically using simile is a figure of speech which compares unassociated things or ideas, right? And is simile a direct comparison or indirect comparison?
It is direct
Di-
comparison, ma'am.
Is it
Direct comparison.
comparison or indirect?
Indirect.
It is indirect.
Direct.
Right?
Indirect.
Indirect comparison, because you're saying, say, I wandered lonely as a cloud. You're not saying I wandered, I was a cloud that wandered lonely. You are saying I wandered lonely as a cloud. So this is an indirect comparison, not a direct comparison, right? If I have to make direct comparison, then how would I say? How would you change the sentence to a direct comparison? I wandered lonely as a cloud. I just mentioned.
I was a cloud that wandered lonely.
I was a cloud that wandered lonely. Okay. So I am basically making a direct comparison in the statement between me and the cloud, but not here. This says as a cloud. So, oh, my love is like a red rose. So, like a red rose. I'm not saying my love is a red rose. I'm saying my love is like a red rose, right? So, it's a difference between direct and indirect comparison. Okay. So, as modest as a hermit, as a face as dull as lead, right? All of these are examples of simile, right? Indirect comparisons. Now, metaphor is the opposite of this. This is also a figure that you use for comparison. But how do you differentiate it with simile? Metaphor is direct comparison, right? Look at the examples. This is the icing on the cake. Silence is golden. You're not saying silence is like gold. You're saying silence is golden, right? Life is a roller coaster ride. You're not saying life is like a roller coaster ride, right? Life is a roller coaster ride. Direct comparison. All the world's a stage. All the world's is like a stage is not how it is written. All the world's a stage. It's a metaphorical usage, okay? And all the men and women merely players, okay? So two metaphorical usage here. Okay, understood? Any
Ma'am?
questions here?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. It's raining like cats and dog is in Merriam-Webster. It's mentioned as a metaphor, but as we further go along with the lectures, it also says it has a this hyperbole as well. So
That could be possible. See, most of the figures of speech are basically, they all have metaphorical usage, right? What's the meaning of metaphor? Metaphor basically means non-literal. If something is not literal, then you call it metaphor. So that is like an umbrella term. Any figure of speech that you discuss, you can say that this is a metaphorical usage. We don't call them metaphor, but we say that this is a metaphorical usage. Metaphorical usage basically means non-literal usage. So in that sense, every other figure of speech is a metaphorical usage. But the example that you give is specifically a hyperbole. That is what the dictionary meant. Okay. Specifically, it is a hyperbole, but it is a metaphorical usage. Hyperboles are also metaphorical usages. Okay.
yeah, got it.
Okay.
Ma'am,
So
I had a doubt.
go ahead.
So you said metaphor is direct comparison, but metaphor is a type of figures of speech, and figures of speech do indirect comparisons. So how is that possible?
No. See, not indirect comparisons. Figures of speech give you non-literal meanings, right? They don't give you direct meanings, is what I meant. I didn't say direct comparison. I never use the word comparison. Comparison is only for simile and metaphor here.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Huh. Okay. Right. So please take a closer look at the examples. If there are examples that you don't understand, then please ask. Okay. Personification, easy, right? Personification is usually, again, all of these are comparisons. Now here comparisons are between, living and non-living entities. Basically, non-living entities are giving human attributes, right? When a non-living entity is talked about or, used to talk about using human attributes, we call that processes, or we call that figure of speech or non-literal usage as personification, right? Usually, not just poems, even in your normal speech, people have a habit of sometimes, to, like I mentioned, to produce that heightened effect. People do use personification. So look at this one. These are all fairly common sentences, right? Books are my favorite companions, right? So this is a personified usage, right? Companions, the moment you hear companions, you have a subconscious figurine of someone who's human, right? But that's not the case discussed here. So any human attribute when given to a non-living entity, the usage qualifies for a personification, okay? In poems, usually the poets usually have a habit, particularly the nature poets, right? Like Wordsworth or Shelley and people like them. They have a habit of using personification a lot. If you have read poems by Keats, like an Ode to Gratian, an Ode to the West Wind, all of those kind of poems that we probably have read in our schools, right? If you revisit them, you'll see very prominent use of personification, right? This is also because we are talking about something that they wrote in an age where they felt like, there's a disconnect between the natural surroundings and the humans. So they brought in this aspect so that people can connect with it better. People can understand the issues better, right? These days, environmentalists and environmental poets also use personification a lot in their writings, or war poets write a lot of, they use a lot of personification. You read people like W.B. Yeats or Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and other war poets, they also use a lot of personification, right? So all of this so that they can connect with the human readers much better, or the readers can connect with the topic explored in the poem better. But it's not just poems, it's also on your in your day-to-day life and conversations. You can very often see people using personification. So the stars winged at us from the distant black sky. You look at children's language, right? The way people talk to children, or the way children are taught poems and rhymes in schools, you'll find a lot of personification in those things as well, right? It's all because you want them to connect to the surroundings better in the way they understand. Okay, so the last one again, this is from Old Man and the Sea, Ernest Hemingway. These are all examples to just, make you familiar with what personification means. I hope you've gone through that. If not, please take this as an opportunity to run through. I hope that's clear. Next is paradox. I think we just discussed, right? All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Now, paradox is a kind of figure of speech which was more commonly used in literature, right? In literary or creative writings, right? Now, what are these? Like I explained, these are thought-provoking elements, right? They're thought-provoking elements. How do they function? They provide a situation or statement that looks impossible or looks conflicting, looks like something that can never happen, right? So they put two contrasting facts or characteristics together and let it work together. So look at the statement. All animals are equal. Okay, this we discussed. Let's take something else. I must be cruel to be kind. Now, this is a statement that Hamlet uses in William Shakespeare's Hamlet, right? What does this mean? I must be cruel to be kind. This is an example of paradox. So there's a conflicting state. This is a conflicting statement, right? Looks like an impossible statement. Okay, there's a contrast in this, but it is also thought-provoking. It's not entirely wrong or false also, right? You can make out some meaning from this Could you try and tell me what this could mean? I must be
Yeah,
cruel
it
to
talks. It talks about the duality of cruelty and
Uh-huh.
non-cruelty.
Uh-huh.
So, cruelty, like darkness can only exist if there is light, and light can only exist if there is darkness. Like that.
Okay. So this is more like a cause and effect. So let's like if I have to, take a real life example, right? Some people like we have strict teachers, right? Some teachers could be like really strict. They're good teachers, but they're also like very strict teachers. So a usual image of such teachers would be like, oh, they are very strict and they're very cruel. They're very stingy with grades. They don't roll out marks as well as the others, right? But a teacher like that could use a sentence in the class. No, I must be cruel to be kind. Now, where does this kind part come? Unless this person is strict and is more, agile about the way they conduct the class, they cannot have the students improve their quality of learning and understanding, right? So I'm not taking any literal meaning because see, you should understand that we are talking about figures of speech. So don't go by the literal meaning of cruel and kind and all that, right? We're just using that so that we can understand a difficult situation, right? I hope you've understood that teacher scenario, right? I must be cruel to be kind basically means that. Or parents need to be strict
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that their children are brought up well, right? So only at a later point, people realize that, okay, this person was being kind to me by being cruel. If the person has not been strict back then, maybe I wouldn't have done what I did, right? So this is that kind of a situation. So overall, the sentence sounds like impossible, but then it's thought provoking. It also tells you that this can be a true situation, right? Same with all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, right? Same with men work together, whether they work together or apart, right? Okay. Oxymoron. Don't read the definitions, not required. Just look at the examples here. So it was a bittersweet experience. That was an awfully good movie. Parting with her was a sweet sorrow. Brawling love or loving hate. Okay.
So it connects to opposite words.
Correct. It contains two words with opposite meanings. Okay. Two words with opposite meanings. Mhm.
Ma'am, the fourth sentence, shouldn't it be an antithesis?
No. No. This is an interjection. For antithesis, you need to have a word, right? We don't count it as a word here. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, how is
So O is
oxymoron
rarely
and
recognized as a word. Sorry?
how is oxymoron different than paradox, ma'am?
There's a structural difference, right? So paradox is like a full situation and the statement. But oxymoron is not a statement. So what is oxymoron in this sentence? It was a bittersweet experience. Bittersweet is your oxymoron. Awfully good part is your oxymoron, right? Sweet, parting with her was a sweet sorrow. Sweet sorrow is your oxymoron. Okay, but that's not the case with paradox. The whole sentence of the statement is giving you the paradoxical effect, not just a word. Okay, that's what it's written. Contains two words with opposite meanings. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
I will, once we are done with this, I will tell you know the methods how you can classify these figures of speech into. I think there are about 20 or 18 or maybe 20 plus or minus 2. So instead of looking at each of them as separate figures of speech, what you could ideally do is classify them into 2 or 3 branches, right? So we'll talk about it once we are done discussing, having run through all of this. So any question on oxymoron? I don't mind spending some time on these things because I don't know when next we can talk about it. So is oxymoron clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then next would be antithesis. Okay, this is what I think someone was asking, right? So difference is that in antithesis, you need to have a word, right? O is an interjection. It's rarely counted as a word. Okay. So look at the examples for antithesis. No pain, no gain. Man proposes, God disposes. To err is human, to forgive divine. And in addition to the word part, repetition, antithesis also has a parallel structure. Parallel structure means same grammatical structure, right? What is that same grammatical structure? If I take the third example, to err is human, to forgive divine. So in both the parts of the phrases, you have the to infinitive repeating, right? To err, to forgive, right? They're similar or parallel, as it is called, grammatical structures. Okay, this is called parallel grammatical structure. To err, to forgive, both of them are same to each other, right? They're same grammatical structures. Man proposes, God disposes, right? So both of them are same grammatical structures. They're written in simple present tense. No pain, no gain, again same grammatical structures. Okay, an adverb and noun, adverb and a noun again. No pain, no gain. So such kind of constructions that provide contrasting meanings are referred to as antithesis. Okay, any questions here?
No, ma'am. Now I understood.
Okay, all right. Others, those of you listening, if you have any questions,
ma'am.
please ask. Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So then let's move on to the next one then. Then you have alliteration. Now, alliteration, we can look at alliteration with a few other figures of speech. So you have alliteration, you have assonance, you have consonants, and you also have sibilants. Okay. So we'll look at all of them together because they all work on one, characteristic. They all work on one feature. And what is that feature? The feature of repetition. Okay, so all of them are literary devices and they all thrive on the property of repetition. Alliteration is when the repetition is of what kind of sounds?
Can you ask your question again?
How does alliteration happens? How does the repetition of sounds in alliteration happens?
The first sound of the adjacent words should be
Similar.
equal. Yeah.
Same, right? The first sound of two adjacent words. So there are two conditions here. One is it should be the first sound, right? And second is that it should be an adjacent word. The word cannot be placed far away from the first word. They both or all of them, whether they are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, all of them need to be placed adjacent to each other, right? To fulfill the condition of alliteration. And the repeated sound should be the first sound of both the adjacent words, right? For example, the first one, like Betty baked buns besides bacons. So the alliterated sound here is B. Okay, so all the sounds, all the words here, they are placed adjacent to each other, and B is the sound, the first sound, which repeats in each of them. Okay, so even if it is not a sentence like Betty baked buns besides bacons, and you have, shorter phrases or words like TikTok or Coca-Cola or PayPal, Peppa Pig, Kit Kat, what do you see here? The words are adjacent to each other, and the repeating sound is the first sound of this adjacent word. Right, this is what alliteration is. Repetition of the
But this is one word, na ma'am.
Sorry?
Ma'am, but PayPal is one word, na ma'am.
People, so for that matter, TikTok is also one word.
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes.
No, but it's a combination of two, right? It's PayPal, right? PayPal is not. It was not a originally existing word. It is a compounded word. It was blended together, right? Pay and pal. PayPal, right? Same with Kit Kat, same with TikTok. Okay, they probably are written as one word, but then they are a blended word. It's like smog, right? Smoke and fog together. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
It's just that in smoke and fog, some elements are lost, like there's a clipping, but in this case, they've used the full word. It's a compounding, full compound. Okay. Right. So all those examples talk to you about alliteration. So that's the repetition of the first sound of the adjacent word. Okay, that's about alliteration. Then comes assonance, consonants, and sibilants. Now here also the feature used is of repetition, but the sound that repeats and how they repeat are different to alliteration, right? In alliteration, we did not have any distinction between whether it should be the vowel that is repeated or whether it should be the consonant that should be repeated. It could be any sound that repeats in the first position of the adjacent words, right? But in assonance, the repeated sound would be what? It would be
Vowel.
vowel sound.
Vowels.
Okay. So in assonance, the repeating sound has to be a vowel sound. It can't be any random sound, right? It has to be a vowel sound that is undergoing the repetition. In consonants, the sound that undergoes repetition should be a consonant sound. Okay. So that's the difference between assonance and consonants. And when it comes to sibilants, the repeating sound has to be a sibilant sound. Now, what are sibilant sounds? S, sh, don't say S, okay? S, sh, j, right? If these are the kind of sounds that are repeating, then you call that sibilants. Now, one difference between alliteration, assonance, consonance, sibilants in terms of the positioning of words is that adjacency is not a requirement. So unlike in this case, right? Bitty baked buns besides bacons or Coca-Cola, the condition was that the words had to be adjacent to each other for alliteration. But in case of assonance, consonants, and sibilants, adjacency is not required. The words needn't be placed next to each other. They can be a little away from each other also. So we'll look at the example. Look at this one. Too cool for school, right? Too cool for school. So you have oo, the sound which is vowel, right? So you see an assonance here. You find the word, find the long oo sound in too, cool, and school, right? 3 words have them. But if you look at the third word school, is it adjacent to too and cool?
No, ma'am.
No, right? So
No, ma'am.
this is okay. So in assonance, this is okay. If we were considering this for alliteration, we won't take it, right? Because the words have to be found next to each other for satisfying the condition of alliteration. But assonance doesn't need that. Even if they are a little away from each other, it's all right. Okay. So Jack and Jill went up the hill. E is the sound that provides assonance, but both Jill and Hill are located far away from each other, right? So E sounds in both of them. I think there is, something wrong here. Actually, the ones marked in different colors, they're both examples of consonants, and E is not marked. So sorry for that typo. Change that. I think in the version that I have, there's a mistake, but in your slides, there shouldn't be.
And
So-
there was a mistake. This one.
Okay. So J and L both are examples of consonants. E is the example of assonance. Okay. In that example, keep in mind. Same for chips and dips. So E would be assonance, and P and S together would be a situation of consonants, right? Surf and turf, again, both are cases of assonance, and F at the end, case of consonants. Okay. This is Simple Simon. She sells seashells on the seashore. These are both examples of sibilants. And the last one, hear the loud alarm bells, brazen bells. Again, examples of sibilants. Okay. Any question here?
Yeah, ma'am. Can you explain the sibilants again?
Sibilants is same as assonance and consonants, repetition of a sound in a given phrase between 2 words, 2 or 3 words. But here the difference is that the sound would be a sibilant sound, like, the s, z, sh kind of sounds.
Okay, so the sounds are repeating, and they're
Yeah.
in the assonance and consonants, the sound need to be either vowel or consonant, right?
Yes, correct. Sibilance is also like a subset of consonants, okay? Except that sibilance is about the sibilant sound, so, sh, z.
Okay.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Ma'am, these 3 things, assonance, consonants, and sibilants, are these variations or sub-forms of alliteration?
No. See, you can connect between assonance, consonants, and sibilants, but alliteration has a different condition, right? It also has the adjacency condition. So if you want to put all of them together, you can simply say that, okay, these are figures of speech which depend on the process of repetition to, provide the rhetorical effect or the metaphorical effect. That you can say. They are all
Okay,
tied
ma'am.
together by the
Okay.
process of repetition. Okay.
Okay, so the basic idea of all four of them is repetition, but the inner context is different.
Yes, yeah. So there are difference in the way the sounds are repeated. They all manifest themselves through repetition of sounds. Okay, that's how you look at it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
And
Okay,
there
next. Go ahead.
was an activity question related to these three. So can you take that little later?
Yes, yes, sure, definitely.
Okay.
Okay. So next is irony, right? So irony is again situational like paradox, right? So what does it involve? Irony is usually produced in a situation when it involves something that is strange or funny or sad, like where the actual events could turn out to be an exact opposite of what one expects. Okay. So basically, to put it plainly across, it means there could be a mismatch in the outcome expected, right? So examples here. So again, reiterating the point that irony is also situational. So it's not about the words you use, it's about the situation you present. Paradox, irony, all of them, they thrive more on situational effects, not on the effect of the word used, okay? Or the meaning of the word used. It's more situational and scenario based in the understanding. Okay, so example, my sister gets really scared at the sight of blood. She's a nurse, right? It's an ironic situation. How can a nurse be afraid of blood? Right? It's you literally in the profession. Then the snowball fight was rescheduled due to heavy snowfall. Okay. Proofreader wrote, I am committed to excellence, right? Proofreader shouldn't make spelling errors, but then you see it here, right? So these are examples of irony, right? Don't forget the fact that irony and paradox are all more situational in nature. So which means unlike your other things, right? Like alliteration or assonance, consonant, sibilance, or what is that? Oxymoron and all that. You won't look at the words here, but you will have to look at the whole sentence to figure out the irony, right? Or the paradox. Okay, clear? Can I move on to the next one?
Yeah, ma'am. What's the
Yes,
difference
ma'am.
between paradox and irony? How can we
Paradox and
differentiate?
irony, see, in irony, unless you, the meaning is more, it's clearer, right? There is very less to read between the lines as far as irony is concerned. But if you look at paradox, you place a very highly unlikely thing to happen, an impossible thing to happen, yet when you read it as a whole, you know that, okay, this is a possible situation. Okay, but irony is more situational. In a situational situation, it is possible. The element of possibility is higher in the case of irony, right? So what? Somebody is a nurse. The person can be scared of blood, right? Heavy snowfall can cause a reschedule in the snowball fight. So element of possibility, impossibility is not like too high in case of irony. But paradox deals with a completely impossible situation. Okay. It presents a completely impossible situation, but has a likely outcome. Okay, that's a difference. Very subtle differences.
And ma'am, one more thing, can I point it out? Like in irony, is there a need to be a real life event to occur? And in like paradoxes, there need not be an real
yes,
life
you can
event.
say that because irony is more situational. So you need to have a real life situation at hand to understand and talk about irony.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, now pun is a very commonly used figure of speech, especially if you are social media users. You'll be very familiar with the use of pun, right? Pun is basically, you utilize the the aspect of certain words to have more than one meaning, right? In a given context, right? In a given context, certain words can have more than one meaning. So people play around with this ability of the words to have two different meanings in a given situation. That is called pun, right? Every language uses pun, right? They're very abundantly found in all languages. A few examples from English: can February March? No, but April May, right? So, of course, the pun is on March and May, and the pun comes about from the fact that both March and May can also be the names of the month, right?
Yes.
Huh. So what if I don't know what apocalypse means? It's not the end of the world, right? So this again comes from a pun on the word apocalypse, which means the end of the world. Okay. Then I always told you, Gwendolyn, my name is Ernest, didn't I? Well, it is Ernest after all. I mean, it naturally is Ernest. So this again is on the pun is on the word earnest, right? This is obviously from the work by Oscar Wilde. So you'll understand this better if you're reading that text, right? So we are talking about a guy whose name is Ernest, whose habits or his ways in the work is not at all, in the work by Oscar Wilde, his ways are not at all earnest, but his name is Ernest, right? So it's punning on the name Ernest and the actual word ernst, the adjective ernst, right?
Yeah, ma'am. What does that mean? That
What does
adjective?
earnest mean? It's an earnest opinion or it's an earnest human. What does the word earnest mean?
I don't know, ma'am.
There has to be a after E.
Someone who's sincere, right? Someone who's sincere or someone who has who's committed or who shows commitment. But earnest, in this one is a guy who has two girlfriends and so on and so forth. So it's a pun on that. So he's not at all like what his name is, right? Okay. Right. So this is
Ma'am,
hello,
ma'am.
sorry.
Ma'am, can taunting others can be included in pun?
Taunting others depends. If you're using a pun to taunt them, then yes. But taunting doesn't by default
okay,
always
okay.
include puns. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Juxtaposition. Now, juxtaposition is more like an umbrella term. You can use that as a umbrella term under which you can put in many things. So what is juxtaposition? Again, see two opposing ideas or two contrasting ideas that are placed next to each other in such a way that they can highlight the differences or the similarities, right? So what do you see there? Antithesis and oxymoron can fall under juxtaposition. They may fall under the umbrella term of juxtaposition, right? So examples here, a living dead person, all is fair in war and love. It was the best of the times, it was the worst of the times, right? So oxymoron and your antithesis can also be put under juxtaposition as a subset of this, okay? Now, what would be the difference if you can gauge from the examples we know? So a living dead person is that it is juxtaposition, but what is it also? Like, what can you call it? Living dead person?
Oxymoron.
And
Oxymoron,
yeah.
right? It is an oxymoron. Correct. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Again, what can this be?
Paradox.
Antithesis.
Antithesis.
Oh,
Antithesis, because you have parallel structures, right? So both of them can then be included under the juxtaposition example. All is fair in war and love. This is more like a statement. So if you don't see the parallel structure or the opposing two-word composition, then you can call it a juxtaposition. Okay, if you have something like, a construction like living dead where you have two opposing words, you can call it an oxymoron. Okay, if you have parallel structures like you see in the second sentence, then it is an antithesis. Okay, if nothing of this is seen, neither the structure or nor the two opposing word, if it looks like the first example, like a sentence, right? All is fair in war and love, then you can simply go ahead and say this is juxtaposition. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, then you have synecdoche. Now, synecdoche is again a very interesting use of figures of speech. So we'll straight away look at the examples. How did the accident happen? He fell fast asleep on the wheels, right? Wheels here referring to the vehicle or the car. So you use only a part of the whole to represent the whole, right? Or you can do the other way around also. You can represent the whole, you can represent the part using the whole also, right? The first two examples we have on the screen here is from part 2 whole, with wheels representing the whole vehicle or car here. In the second example, how many of you would come for the trekking? Can we have a head count? Head count referring to people. So a
Number
part
of people.
referring to whole, right? Next example, I went out for lunch with my friends. Friends here refer to a certain individual and not every person who one considers friend. Okay. So although you have written friends here, I went out for lunch with my friends. Okay. Here, when used as a synecdoche, it actually it should be I went out for lunch. I went for lunch to my friends, right? That should actually be the construction, but this is also fine. Here, friends refer to that one friend, not everyone who's your friend. Okay, so whole representing the part. Second example, the police were at my uncle's shop after the shop adjacent to his reported robbery. The police here refers to only a few officers and not the whole department. Okay, so this is how you represent whole to part. The way you use words to represent that word as a whole to part or part to whole is known as synecdoche. Okay.
Yes,
Question?
ma'am.
Okay. Now, next is anaphora, right? Anaphora again depends on what? Repetition. Okay. Anaphora is again something that depends on repetition, but here we are not talking about repetition of sounds, but we are going to talk about repetition of a word or a phrase, right? Remember, alliteration, assonance, consonants, and sibilants, they all again thrived on the feature of repetition. But what was repeated there? Sounds.
Sound.
Correct. But here, the repetition is either going to be of a word or a phrase or a clause, right? That's how they're different from each other. So, anaphora, stay home, stay safe, right? This very famous slogan from COVID times. So, stay and stay. The anaphoric uses because of the repetition of the word stay. And then what you see next is an example of T.S. Eliot's poem, The Wasteland, of which every sentence, every line begins with the word and, right? So the anaphoric usage is on the word and, repetition of and, right? Okay. Next is metonymy. Metonymy is again a very, shouldn't it be?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Please,
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Ma'am, could you please show the backwards previous
Okay.
slide?
Sure.
Yeah, ma'am. In this, isn't it a personification?
Which one?
In second example, the bats with baby faces or the fiddle,
And
whisper
bats with
music.
baby faces in the
Yeah.
violet light.
Yeah.
Whistled and beat their wings. No, it's not, because babies don't whistle and beat their wings, right? It's bad.
Okay.
So
Okay.
for personification to happen, no, the attributes described should be human. Okay.
Okay.
Unless it is
Got it.
something.
Yeah. Got it, ma'am.
There's
Yeah.
another question. If fell asleep on the wheels is a correct usage. It's a correct grammatical usage. Nothing wrong there. I haven't heard at the wheels. I have heard mostly on the wheels. Not heard as in, I don't mean I have heard, so it is right. That's how you actually use it. Asleep on the wheels. Okay. So then you have metonymy. Metonymy is easy to understand. This is basically reference to the use of substitute, right? So you substitute, the actual word for something that is more indirect in nature. So look at this one. The Kiwis played well in today's match, right? Kiwis referring to the New Zealand's cricket team, right? White House wished all Indians on the occasion of Diwali. White House refers to the President of the United States of America. Then decision on the scheme has to be finalized by Delhi.
Hello, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, please go ahead. Okay. So Delhi here refers to the government of India, right? And then in India, we speak many tongues. Tongues refer to languages, right? So this
Ma'am,
basically-
I have a doubt, ma'am. What's the difference between synecdoche and
Synecdoche.
synecdoche and metonymy? Because that's also referring to the part of a whole, and this is also a part of the whole. So what's the difference, ma'am?
No, where is this referring to part as a whole? In metonymy, we don't have the part and whole discussion.
No, kiwis. Kiwis. It is the part. I mean, it represents the New Zealand's cricket team. So that's why I'm
It is
asking.
representation, no? So there is no question of, say, part or whole. But in the case of synecdoche, you're saying fell asleep on the wheels, where wheels is a representation of, or wheels refers to the whole of the car. Or when you say the police came to the, the site
So
of.
officially, they are not a representation. So that's why we are considering as that figure of speech. And in here, it's official. So that's why we are
No,
using.
no.
Like,
No,
ma'am,
no.
wheel is a
There is
part
nothing
of car,
official.
but kiwis are not part of New Zealand cricket team.
So you need to
Okay.
understand it a little better. It's not about official and unofficial. One is directly connected to. See, when I say wheels, wheels is connected to the vehicle, right? I can get an idea
Yeah.
of vehicle from that. But when I say Kiwis played well in today's match, there is no direct connection between the cricket team and the Kiwis. It's just a name that you use to, substitute the cricket team, right? Like if I say
Okay.
the Kangaroos played well, I'm basically saying the Australian cricket team played well, right? So it's a metaphorical usage to represent their team, right? So there's nothing
Okay.
part and whole about it. But that's not the case with synecdoche. When you read that sentence, you get an idea of what I'm talking about. When I say fell fast on the wheels, although I'm just saying wheels, I mean the car, and wheels are part of the car. So I can get an idea from that. Someone
Okay.
who doesn't know that the Kiwis represent is something that used to talk about New Zealand's cricket team probably will not understand this. They'll be like, what do you mean by Kiwis played well in today's match, right? So you need to
Yeah.
have this understanding.
Ma'am, by
Okay,
the way,
got it, ma'am. Thank you.
kiwis are some fruits, right?
Sorry,
Kiwis refers to the fruits.
this is not that kiwi. Okay, read
The
that
bird
out.
one.
Okay.
It's a bird. It's not the fruit that you eat. Yeah, there's kiwi that way also, but there are other kiwis as well. Okay, the bird kiwi.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so White House, Delhi, right tongues, and all that. They all are substituted words to talk about a unrelated thing, right? Okay. Now, litards, they're easy to understand, but they can also something that can run into confusion once in a while. So litards are basically, used to, are negative, statements used to talk about something positive, right? Or if I have to explain it a bit, then I would say that it's an indirect or a roundabout way of presenting an idea, right? It is closer to irony in its function, not as much, not every time, but sometimes it can give that effect. But you need to understand only one thing about litards, that you use litards to talk positively about something using negative expression. Okay, so for example, you say, not bad, right? Did you make this dish? Not bad, right? So when I say not bad, I'm basically saying it's good. Okay, so I'm saying something positive using negative expressions, right? Instead of saying it is good, I'm saying it's not bad, right? So indirect way of representing something, right? Metaphorical use and figurative use. Filthy rich. She's filthy rich. Is filthy like a positive usage? Filthy?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
I would also like to address one thing here. I don't know if it is this semester or a few semesters ago. Somebody had raised a question on whether filthy rich is an oxymoron, right? Now, is this an oxymoron? What do you guys think? It's a confusion.
Oxymoron connects two opposite words. So filthy and rich are not two opposite words.
Correct. So, how about, an expression like awfully good?
That is oxymoron.
That is oxymoron.
That
It is
is not.
oxymoron. Will this be considered a litort if I say, oh, this is awfully good? When I say it is awfully good, I mean it in a positive way, right? But is this a litort?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
It
is it
should
a,
be.
It can
is
be
it a
both.
litort?
Right?
You can consider this as both, right? So this is a case where you can say that awfully good is one example where you may consider this as both a litort as well as an oxymoron, right? Because awfully and good are opposite to each other, right? But
Yes.
that's not the case with filthy rich. Filthy and rich are not opposite to each other. So it is not an oxymoron, but filthy rich is a case of a litort. Awfully good can be both. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, if you have understood that, then you have understood both oxymoron and litort. So you get this one, how we use
Yes,
litort,
class.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Not bad, not without truth. What he said is not without truth. So instead of saying that what he said is true, say it's not without truth. Okay. Okay.
Hello,
Then
excuse me, ma'am.
yes, please.
Ma'am, this session is recorded on YouTube or not?
Sorry.
Ma'am, this session is recorded on YouTube or not?
Yeah, this is recorded. It would be uploaded on YouTube. Maybe you can check it on Monday. Today is a Saturday, so probably people are not available in the office. By Monday, I think they will.
Ma'am, all the sessions are recorded on YouTube.
Every session is recorded and uploaded.
But ma'am,
You can.
I found the previous session, but I can't find.
You found the previous session in the sense the one that
No,
happened
ma'am.
on Wednesday.
We search for but not found, ma'am.
Okay, you will have to subscribe to the list. Okay, please go back to
No,
your
ma'am.
academic.
Actually, the session is unlisted in YouTube. So there is a spreadsheet in our portal, which
Okay.
in which the link will be given.
Okay.
So I checked today, and it is not given yet.
It's not given. So probably they have not updated. Okay. They probably
Yes,
are on because, weekend and all that. So they might do it on Monday. If it is not uploaded on Monday, also please write to the forum. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, I want to ask one more question related to litorts. So, litorts is only used for positive things.
Yeah. Mostly
Like
for positive things. Yeah.
Like if it is pretty ugly, so it will come in what?
It's pretty ugly. No, don't say it's pretty ugly. That's not a litort usage. Okay. Pretty ugly would be more like an oxymoron, not like a litort. Litorts are usually used to, you call them understatements. Okay. I did not use the word because I didn't want to confuse people. So understatements is usually when you're saying something positive, but then you're also not like saying that, oh, this is amazing. Right. So when I say not bad, I'm not giving it a negative review, but I'm also not giving it like an amazing review. Okay.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Now I understood. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So hyperbole, I think this is the last, should be, oh no, this is not. Oh my God. Okay. Let's finish this then. Okay. This figure of speech is what? Hyperbole is basically used for exaggeration, right? When you want to emphasize or draw attention to certain things, right? When you want to, bring attention to the fact that how important this is, right? You tend to exaggerate, right? Why do you exaggerate? Because you want to draw attention to that, right? You want to emphasize upon that. So it's raining cats and dogs. Okay, it's raining cats and dogs means it's pouring, heavily raining, right? That's what it means. Then there was pin drop silence. Very common sentence, a very common phrase. We've all heard this, at least back in the school days, right? Pin drop silence, right?
Yes, ma'am.
This is exaggeration. You can't have something like pin drop silence, but again, exaggeration to emphasize the point. Okay. Very funny person. I died laughing at his jokes. Nobody dies laughing at the jokes, but it's just to show that how funny the person was, show intensity. Have been waiting forever for him to say yes. Okay. Again, exaggeration. You speak so sweet, I will get a cavity from all the talking. Again, exaggeration. Okay. So, function of hyperbole is to show exaggeration in speech. Euphemism, again, a very important figure of speech when you have to talk about unpleasant things, right? When you have to communicate to people about something that is unpleasant or you think would be rude if communicated directly, you take the help of euphemistic expressions, right? So examples, some of them here: passed away instead of dead, guest worker instead of temporary worker or migrant worker, and all that, right? Downsized from job instead of saying somebody was fired from the job, well fed instead of overweight, outspoken instead of bossy, correctional facility instead of jail or prison, right? Rehabilitation center instead of de-addiction units, right? Bridge courses instead of remedial courses, right? All of them in order to neutralize the language that you use, right? Well, because you're obviously communicating or talking about something that may not be very pleasant for the listener. Okay. So this is euphemistic usage, right? Now, one word of caution while you use figures of speech, some of the usage could be little culturally sensitive, must be a bit sensitive for certain social labels and categories. So every time we use figurative language, one must be careful that you are sensitive about such things, right? So make sure that there is no language bias of race or gender or ethnicity or disability or class or religion or caste, right? One must be careful that you don't bring in the kind of metaphorical usage which could, be outrageous to social categories. So while this can add good elements to your speech and writing, while it is really going to make your language look impressive, these kind of biases should be taken care of before you coin or construct a figure of speech. Okay. That's all about this. So have you understood this part on euphemism and hyperbole and all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now
Ma'am,
one more thing. Go ahead.
Ma'am, can we contrast the idea of litotes with euphemism, like saying negative with in a positive way?
Sorry, come again. What was that?
Ma'am, in litotes, we what we do is use negative things to say something positive, and
Correct.
here in euphemism, we use positive things to say something negative, right?
Yeah, I won't say positive. You can simply say that you just basically neutralize that whole thing. That's all, right?
All right.
I don't know what is positive about, passed away. There's nothing positive there. You're just using a different way of,
Then we just neutralize.
putting it across. Yeah. Okay. So it's not about positive, negative. It's just about a roundabout way of presenting it, just because you don't want to get into trouble. That's all. People shouldn't say that, oh, how could you say something like that? So just to avoid that kind of unpleasant situations, you just play around with the language so that, people do understand what you mean. But then again, you don't get to take the blame of, having said something rude or unpleasant. Okay. I mean, who work in the corporate will definitely understand what that would mean. Okay, fine. So one more thing before I close the session for today, just 2 minutes. I'm sorry, I have exceeded by about 10 minutes, but I'll just close in under 2 minutes. This is about, I was talking about classification, right? So we have looked at quite a few figures of speech. So in this, for repetition, you can group some of the figures of speech under, features which they utilize to perform their figurative function. So for comparison, like if I take comparison as one kind of strategy, then I can put what all under comparison? I can put metaphor under comparison, simile under comparison. I can, what else can I put under comparison? None of these. Okay, so let's say for comparison, you have simile and metaphor. And if I'm going to use the method of contrast, right? If I'm looking at figures of speech which use the methods of contrast, what all can you put under that? Sorry? Irony, right? Irony goes under that. Then what else goes? Juxtaposition goes under that. Oxymoron goes under that. Antithesis goes under that, right? These are all figures of speech that use contrast and conflicting meanings to produce their even puns, right? I can put puns also under that.
Ma'am, litotes.
So 5 of them. Litotes, do they have contrast? Yes, maybe litotes also. Okay, so litotes also will go under that. So antithesis, oxymoron, irony, pun, litotes, and juxtaposition. All of them utilize contrasting methods as their
Can we add
method.
personification in comparison?
We can add personification, yes. Under comparison, we can put similes, metaphor, and personification. Okay, correct. Then for repetition, you have which all?
Alliteration?
Alliteration,
Correct.
assonance, consonance, and sibilance.
Sibilant, correct. And then one more thing, the one where you were repeating the word anaphora, right?
Anaphora.
Anaphora also comes under that. Then we are left with substitution, right? So under substitution, you can put synecdoche, part to whole to part. Metonymy also comes under substitution. Hyperbole also comes under substitution because you are substituting things with exaggerated elements. And euphemism is also definitely substitution. Okay, so you have four main categories. Figures of speech that use comparisons as a method, figures of speech that use contrasting situation or word or phrase or clause as a method, then figures of speech that use repetition as a method, and finally the one which uses substitution as a method, right? So if you can form the subgroup and put all of them under each of them, then maybe you can reduce a bit of confusion because there are too many of them. I see that, right? So when you are learning, maybe group them like this so that, you can retain this part better for the exam. Okay.
Ma'am, can you again repeat what are the categories like comparison and
You have
contrast?
comparison. Comparison is first one. Then you have contrast. Then you have repetition, and then finally you have substitution.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think I am more or less done. We will do the activity for this in the next class. I have like a worksheet for this. So since I have discussed it full length with you, although that was not my idea initially, I think next week when you come to the class, we can start with the worksheet on this and then move on to clauses. Okay. Any questions?
Ma'am, should we English 2 students attend the English 1 to second?
No, why should you? You don't have to.
Okay,
Just
okay.
come to the live session on Wednesday because it's a combined session for doubt clearance. Okay.
Okay.
You don't have to come to English one, of course. Okay. All right. I hope we don't have more questions. If you do, you definitely can ask. And if you don't know what to ask now, then you can look through what you want to, write to us on the forum or come back to the live session. Whatever it is, just get it cleared. Okay.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes. Omkar, you have a question?
Ma'am, there is a English speaking program as part of English too. So how can I join it?
I did not hear you clearly, Omkar.
There is English speaking program as part of English too. So how can I join?
In conversational practice, they'll send out an announcement. You can submit your, prompt as they have asked you to. But conversational practice is a very restricted session. So the team makes a call on who they want to select. Only if they select you, they'll send you an email with an invite. Okay. So they have a certain process for that. You just send in the whatever they're asking you to submit. I don't know if the announcement mail is out yet. If it is, please do what they're asking you to. If they make a selection, they'll write to you. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you take the question 4th of practice assignment?
Yeah, please tell me what the question is. We'll take a look at it.
Sit down a while and let us once again assail your ears that are so fortified against our story. What we have tonight seen, the figure of speech used here is.
Okay, Ananya, can you post it for me or could you repeat it again slowly so that I can hear you?
Okay, ma'am. Sit down a while and let us once again assail your ears that are fortified against our story. What we have tonight seen.
What we have? What is the last part?
Tonight seen.
2 nights seen, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The figure of speech used here is
Tough to say. What are the options you have?
assonance, consonants, sibilants, and none of the other.
Okay, this is why I wanted to see the question. Your ears.
Sibilance.
If you have the sound repeating anywhere, then it should be sibilance, right? But this is a pretty long sentence. I can't answer it like that. Okay, tell me that again. Sorry for that. Just give me the question again.
Ma'am, I will write it in the
Okay,
chat.
that should be better. Thank you.
Just one. Sibilance is the right answer.
Okay, sibilant. We'll see. Maybe that's the answer, but I would like to see if there are any other options. With the broader bit, what is it? Different figure of speech is really thin in some cases. Yeah, it is thin in some cases. For example, cases like paradox and irony sometimes can run into similarities, but they will have enough elements for us to make the difference. Okay, sit down a while and let us once again assail your ear. Yeah, this is certainly sibilance. Certainly sibilance, because the most repeated sound here is s, and us, once again, hazel. But I think you can also have sit down a while. Sit down. Is a while a word?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A while. Oh, yes. But it means the same as a while. Okay. Anyway, maybe literary usage. Sit down a while and again. Okay. One more thing is when you're looking for repetition of words, no, I don't think you need to look at if you have words like off and this and that and all. No, these are usually functional words. So we don't make use of functional words as such for the analysis. If you have a content word, then that is what is mostly counted, right? So you can avoid the use of it, with, mainly, things like conjunctions and prepositions and all that. These are what we call as functional words, or articles like the and all that, right? Unless it is like a content word like a noun or adverb or adjective or verb, you can avoid the rest of the things. We can take in that. Rocks in the box. Yes. Yeah, that is sibilance.
Ma'am, can you explain it little that how we will understand its sibilance or other things? I got little confused in it.
So see, obviously in the sentence you hear too many sir sounds, right? Which are oft repeated, right? In this one. Correct. Sounds matter, not spelling. Yeah, sounds matter definitely, not the spellings. Of course, sounds matter. So if you hear a certain sound prominently, then obviously, repeating often in the given phrase or the sentence or the word given, then it has to be sibilance. If it is right, if it is some other sound, some other consonant sound, then consonants. If you don't hear consonant sounds as often, but what you hear more often on more count as you hear is a vowel sound, then it has to be an assonance, right? That you can check with the words you have here. So for example, in this one, you have sit and us and once and assail and years and against and story and nights and see too many sir sounds, right? They are prominently heard in the sentence. That's how we know it is sibilance. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Now I got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Just look for the frequency of the sounds. Like if it is oft repeated, then that is what you need to go ahead and mark. Okay. All right. No more questions. I don't see anything more. So I think we can stop for today. We'll meet next week again. And See you again. Okay. Thank you so
Ma'am,
much.
is the